Adaeze Okafor was standing in a 2 million naira dress, clutching a bouquet of roses that smelled like a funeral. Behind her, 400 of Lagos's elite waited for her to say, "I do." But outside, in a dusty 92 Toyota Camry with the engine idling, sat Obinna, the man who had been waiting 7 years for her to realize she was marrying the wrong man. This is the story of a man who loved in silence and a woman who almost drowned in the noise. To understand how she ended up here, standing between a life of loud luxury and a love that never said its name, we have to go back, 7 years back, to Agbani Road. Adaeze Okafor was 23 years old, freshly graduated from the Enugu State University of Science and Technology with a degree in mass communication, and already tired, deeply, bone tired, of men who talked too much. Her father had talked too much. Beautiful words, grand promises, declarations of devotion that filled the house like music. And then one morning, when Adaeze was 11 years old, he was simply gone. No fight, no warning, just absence where a man used to be. Her mother never cried in front of her, but Adaeze heard her at night, through the thin walls of their flat on Independence layout, crying the way women cry when they don't want their children to know, quietly, with their face pressed into a pillow, as if grief itself needed to be hidden. Her first boyfriend, Chidi, had also talked too much. He said she was his world. He said he had never felt this way about anyone. He said she was different from other girls. And she believed him, the way young women believe things when they are hungry for proof that love is real. He cheated with her roommate. He apologized with words. More words, beautiful, useless words. She left him and made herself a promise. She would never again trust a man whose love lived only in his mouth. So when her mother's old Camry broke down on Agbani Road that rainy Tuesday evening, and she had to push it alone, in heels, in the rain, to the nearest mechanic workshop, she was not in the mood for charm. She was not in the mood for flattery. She was not in the mood for any man who would look at her wet dress and see an opportunity. The workshop was small. 3 bays, 2 apprentices, a radio playing flavor at low volume, and a man named Obinna Dike, who came out to meet her, not with a smile designed to disarm, not with the kind of look that made women feel simultaneously seen and undressed, but with the calm, unhurried attention of someone who understood that a person standing in the rain with a broken car did not need charm, they needed help. He looked at the car first, not at her. He walked around it slowly, the way a doctor walks around a patient, observing, assessing, not yet speaking. She told him the engine had just died, that it had been making a knocking sound for weeks. He didn't ask her to repeat herself. He didn't ask unnecessary questions. He crouched beside the front wheel, listened to something she couldn't hear, stood up and said 2 words. Timing belt.
Timing belt.
How bad is it? We'll need to replace it. Okay, let's do it.
She asked how long it would take. He said about 2 hours. He pointed her toward a chair inside the workshop, the one on the left side, he specified, because the roof didn't leak on that side. She asked if he was going to tell her the cost first. He said there was no point charging for guesses. He would tell her when he knew what else was wrong. She stood there for a moment, waiting for the follow-up, the compliment, the unnecessary conversation, the attempt to make her feel like she owed him something for his helpfulness. It never came. He had already turned back to the car. She sat in the chair. She watched him work. He didn't perform. He didn't glance over to check if she was watching. He simply worked, with the focused, unhurried precision of a man who understood exactly what he was doing and needed no audience to confirm it. 2 hours passed. The rain slowed. The radio changed songs 3 times. And when Obinna finally stood up, wiped his hands, and said the car was ready, Adaeze realized she had spent 2 hours in a mechanic workshop and felt more at peace than she had felt in months. He charged her 15,000 for the belt and 5 for labor. She said it was actually fair. He looked at her briefly and said, "Why would it not be?" She paid him. She drove home.
Thank you.
And she told herself she would never think about him again. That night, lying in bed, listening to the last of the rain against her window, she realized something strange. In 2 hours with that mechanic, she had felt safer than she had felt in 2 years with Chidi, and he had barely said 20 words. And if you have ever had someone in your life who showed you love so quietly that you almost missed it, someone whose love didn't announce itself but simply was, stay with this story, because what happened to Adaeze is going to change the way you think about love forever. The Camry broke down again 3 weeks later. Fuel pump. She brought it back to the same workshop. She told herself it was because Obinna was honest, because he didn't overcharge, because the workshop was close. She told herself a lot of things, but the truth was simpler and more inconvenient than all of them. When she arrived for the second visit, the fuel pump was already there, waiting. Obinna had noticed the pressure was low during the first visit and had ordered the part because he knew it would fail soon. He hadn't told her because he didn't want to charge her for something that hadn't broken yet. But he had ordered it, just in case she came back, just in case she needed it. He had thought about her car, which meant he had thought about her. Without being asked, without being paid, without any expectation of acknowledgement. The third visit was the alternator. By now, the workshop felt familiar in the way that places feel familiar when they hold something you haven't named yet. She noticed, on this third visit, that the chair had been moved. It was now on the right side of the workshop, near the window, where the afternoon sun came through at an angle that was warm without being harsh. She sat in it without thinking. It was only later, driving home, that she remembered. She had mentioned casually once, in passing, that she got cold easily. She had said it the way you say things you don't expect anyone to remember. A throwaway sentence. Background noise. He had remembered. He had moved the chair. He never said he moved it for her. He never said he remembered what she told him. He never said anything. The chair was just there, in the warm spot, every time. By the fourth visit, Adaeze wasn't just bringing the car. She was bringing food. 2 plates of jollof rice from the woman who sold near her house. 1 for her, 1 for him. He wiped his hands on a rag, looked at the food, looked at her and said,
Thank you.
That's it. Most guys would have used this as an opportunity to ask for my phone number.
I already have your number. You gave it to me for the fuel pump follow-up.
You never called.
You didn't ask me to.
and there it was. The thing about Obinna that both frustrated and fascinated her. He never took more than what was offered. He never assumed. He never pushed. He existed in her life like gravity, invisible, essential, and so constant that you forgot it was the thing keeping you from floating away. They weren't dating. They weren't in a relationship. There was no label, no declaration, no conversation about what this was or what it could become. If you had asked Obinna what Adaeze was to him, he would probably have said a customer. Not because he was cold, not because he didn't feel anything, but because Obinna was a man who did not name things he had not been given permission to name. If you had asked Adaeze what Obinna was to her, she would have hesitated, and that hesitation contained more truth than any answer she could have given. Because the truth was that Obinna Dike had become the safest person in her world, and she didn't know what to do with that. Because safe wasn't what she had been taught to want. She had been taught to want exciting. She had been taught to want loud. She had been taught to want the man who swept you off your feet, not the man who made sure your feet were always on solid ground. Adaeze got the job she had always wanted, a junior producer position at a media house in Lagos. She packed her bags. She hugged her mother for a long time. She drove the old Camry, which Obinna had serviced the week before, without being asked, because he knew she was leaving, and he knew Lagos roads were different from Enugu roads, to the workshop one last time. She told him she was moving to Lagos. He paused for a moment, adjusting
I'm
a
moving
wrench
to
he wasn't
Lagos,
really
Obinna.
using, and said, "That's good.
That's good.
Lagos is where the opportunities
Lagos is where the
are."
opportunities are.
Is that your way of saying you miss me?
Drive safe. Check your tire pressure before Third Mainland Bridge. And don't let the engine idle too long in traffic.
And don't let the engine idle too long in traffic. He didn't say he would miss her. He said, check your tire pressure. And somehow that was worse, because Adaeze heard what he actually meant. She heard it the way you hear thunder after lightning, delayed but undeniable. Lagos swallowed her whole. The speed of it, the noise of it, the ambition of it. Within 6 months, she was producing short documentary segments. Within a year, she was assistant producing a primetime show. And in the margins of that life, in the spaces between deadlines and meetings and the relentless forward motion of Lagos, Obinna existed. A text here, a brief call there. She would call him, and he would ask about the car before he asked about her, and she would laugh and tell him about her work. He would tell her about her mother's car, which he was still servicing. She asked once if he charged her mother. He went silent. She asked again. He said, "She's your mother." He had been servicing her mother's car for free. Not once, every time. For 2 years. He never mentioned it. Her mother never mentioned it. It was simply something Obinna did. The way the sun rises, without announcement, without expecting applause, without even confirming that anyone was watching. Every month, like clockwork, a text arrived on Adaeze's phone. "Hope you're eating well. Lagos traffic is bad. Check your coolant. Rainy season starting. Make sure your wipers are good. Your mother is fine. I checked on her." Short, practical, unromantic. The kind of messages that didn't make your heart race, but made your heart safe. And Adaeze read every single one. She saved every single one. She never told anyone about them. She couldn't explain them. How do you explain a man who loves you in the language of timing belts and brake pads? Have you ever ignored someone's quiet love because it didn't look the way you expected love to look? Have you ever chosen the firework over the candle and only realized when the firework went dark that the candle was still burning? Tell me in the comments, because what happens next in this story will test everything you believe about love. It was at a media industry mixer at a Victoria Island lounge that everything changed. The room was full of the kind of people Lagos produces in abundance. Ambitious, polished, loud in the way that money makes people loud. Adaeze was standing near the bar, slightly apart from the crowd, nursing a glass of water and thinking about a deadline, when she felt someone approach. Not heard, felt. The way you feel a change in air pressure before a storm. He was 31 years old. He wore a Tom Ford suit the color of midnight. He drove a white G-Wagon. He was the CEO of a digital marketing agency that handled campaigns for banks and telecoms. His name was Chukwuemeka Eze. Everyone called him Emeka, and he walked toward Adaeze with the confidence of a man who had never been told no, and had never considered that no was a possible answer. He said she was the most interesting person in the room.
You're the most interesting person in this room. And you're standing in the corner like you're hiding.
Maybe I am.
Really? Hiding from what?
From men who open with lines like that.
He
Fair.
introduced himself.
Let me try again.
He said he produced
Chukwuemeka
noise
Eze.
for a living.
Everyone calls me Enika.
Right
I
now,
produce noise for a
he would
living,
rather
but right
listen.
now I would
He
rather
was
listen.
good, dangerously good. And Adaeze, who had spent a year in Lagos, lonely, exhausted, drowning in work, was starving for noise, for attention, for someone who looked at her like she was the only woman in a city of 20 million. Emeka looked at her exactly like that, every single time. And what happened next would cost Adaeze everything she thought she wanted. Subscribe to this channel, turn on that notification bell, because part 2 is coming, and this story is about to get painful.